So, guys, I went to NXT Deadline tonight, and it was definitely very telling the differences between the AEW shows and also the NXT show. And there's a couple of things I think AEW can kind of learn from the show. That first of all, the big thing is that they actually had 8 matches altogether, including one preliminary match. Like, the problem is that if you're going to do professional wrestling and you have match cards with like 14, 15, 16 matches, that's not appropriate at all, unless you're trying to like do it for like a WrestleMania type of thing. Definitely, definitely that's one of the issues with AEW is that I think they have way too many matches, and that's actually kind of good because the World's End is coming up, so it's like they haven't announced any matches except for the Continental Classic and then also the Samoa Joe versus MJF. And since they're not really since you don't really know what they're going to do, really, you're going to see a lot of repeat matches. And I also think that's another thing that I like too, is that all these matches were new. All these matches were new to me. I think one benefit is that they're not, if I watch NXT for a while, I would hope that they don't do something like a bunch of repeat matches all the time, really. So I do think that that's a very telling, no repeat matches, and then also not 13, 14 matches. The next thing that's also good is that when you watch the show, that the penultimate match with the women's match, and I think that's very effective for AEW if they have a women's match that's like the penultimate or the main event. Like, it's almost like the women's main event and the men's main event. If the women do a better job, they should main event. If the men do a better job, they should main event the pay-per-view. I think that would be very, very helpful. The next thing is that if you look at the card, there's actually 2 matches that had women in it, versus like most AEW shows that only have maybe like one women match on the card. And then also the other thing is that when you look at the promos with WWE, they edit their promos a lot better. They do a lot of great montages a lot better. And then the other thing that they do is that I think that with their promos, they kind of show, it's almost like what's kind of going on with Baron Corbin and Ilya Dragunov if you never watched NXT. And you also kind of know what's going on with the 2 women in the cage match. And that's also very important because the problem is if you have match after match after match and no build, it's like, why should I care? And then the next thing is almost like, I don't know the story here. It's just there to be there. That's not always good to kind of just have match after match. And then also, as I said, that if somebody just wants to stumble into AEW and watch a show and they don't know like what's going on, the feud, who's following it, it's always good that, maybe 3 or 4 matches on the card, there are promos like highlighting, a story you're trying to tell here. And I also think that another thing that I like is that they had the CM Punk appearance. They also had HBK as well, and they also announced Rey Mysterio. So you have 3 legends, and why don't you do something like that too? Definitely, if there's a match or whatever, or definitely, if there's an opening match, why not have Mark Henry come out? Why not have Dustin Rhodes? Why not have Paul White? Why not have a legend come out just to kind of hype up the crowd, really, instead of just, as I said, I think the AEW relies way too much on matches. And I think with WWE, they rely way more on characters. And the characters are very important because, like I've said before, that you look at any episode of Naruto, you look at most of the fights in Naruto, like the big fights, why do they mean something? Why was basically Pain versus Naruto like the best fight in the whole series? Is because of all that build and all that character. Like, if you take 2 people that people care about and they have a match, that makes it very powerful. But if you do something like you have 2 people just F around and try to do a great match, yes, it's gonna pop the crowd, but it pops it more when you actually care about the characters. I think that's also really good. I also think that one thing I like about NXT is that it's it's probably over 95% NXT people. It's probably 5% WWE main roster people. So even if you do something like have a great match and it's like Baron Corbin, coming in or whatever, I do think that that's actually really good because you kind of know who it's really about. And that's also true with AEW. That's kind of why I said that, maybe when they do more pay-per-views in 2024, you can do a pay-per-view that has just the Dynamite wrestlers, a pay-per-view with just the Collision wrestlers, and a pay-per-view with just the ROH wrestlers. And then maybe you kind of say, okay, maybe one person from Dynamite can go over to Collision and actually have a match or whatever. So I like that there isn't just I like that, what happens is that there's not really just a bunch of, like a mixed card or whatever. Or I like that there's not that much of a mixed card. So I think that that's kind of really good. You kind of just like know who an NXT wrestler is, who a SmackDown wrestler is, who is a Raw wrestler. That on the big pay-per-views, it's Raw and SmackDown, and maybe you may have one NXT match. But most of the time, you're not going to kind of mix the two together, really. So that's why I think that's important. And then the next thing I kind of would say is definitely NXT is NXT. Like it's not like AEW where Dynamite people go on Collision people go on Rampage. That you have ROH people on Collision, it's just like a clusterfuck. Like, as I said, I think as some people were saying that maybe what they should do is have, you have AEW Dynamite be 2 hours, then you have Rampage be 1 hour, and then what you do is with Collision, you should call it AEW Collision ROH, and that should just be the ROH show. And I think then you'll actually have something there. I do think that just mixing the two is not good, really. And then also, the best thing that they've done with ROH and AEW is really MJF and Adam Cole. Then you have, if you're doing what they should be doing is, make Saturday the ROH show, and then have, a few people, maybe have 1 or 2 people that are big stars from Dynamite or Rampage actually be on that show to help the ratings and all that. There's a lot that AEW can do. And then the other thing that I like about it is that I do like how with the arena, the ring was a little bit higher, so everybody kind of saw what was going on a little bit better. And then the other thing that I'll say is that they had this, I forgot the Iron Man match or something like that, or the Last Survivor Iron match or something like that. But they explained the rules, and they also explained the penalty box, and how long and it was also a timed match, so 25 minutes. So they kind of gave you a count up to 25, and they also kind of gave you a count up with the penalty box, and they also explained the rules a few times, and that's important because if you're going to have a pure championship match, or if you're going to have other matches with special stipulations, you need to explain that to the audience. And if it's something with a complicated stipulation, like a pure match or whatever, the audience needs to know about that, and that's important. And then the other thing that I like too is that They do this sometimes in AEW, but sometimes they don't do it. Is that sometimes they'll announce the announcers that they're a legend, but I know in some with I think Wrestle Dream and also Full Gear, they didn't do that when Jim Ross and other people were coming out. If your announcer is a legend, please announce that, because that's very, very important, very a way of showing respect and prestige. And sometimes if you have extra time to start the show, you can announce that it's Jim Ross or whoever, really. And then, as I said, that once again, if you want to hype the crowd, really, what you do is that you may start it with a guest announcer or whoever, really. Maybe for Wrestle Dream, if Sting's not wrestling, maybe Sting should be the announcer for the opening match and just hype the crowd that way. So there's definitely a lot that AEW can learn. I do think that, with the NXT show, I will review it. I will say it's a B-. And definitely, I would say it was a passable show. I would say that I've seen worse AEW shows, and I've seen better AEW shows. But definitely, there's a lot that they can learn from NXT.